Welcome to the Red Devils Advocate. This is the official podcast of the Miami Red Devils Supporters Club. I'm Adam. I'm joined, as always, by the president that we all can agree on, your president of the Miami Red Devils, President Carter. Carter, how we doing?
Doing good. Just came back from vacation, so I'm chilling.
Excellent. And we are also joined, as we have been in recent weeks, by longtime Man United supporter and Miami Red Devil, Gerard G. Williams. G, how you feeling, buddy?
Feeling good, my boy. How we doing, guys? How we doing?
No, I love that. That was pretty smooth. Yeah, we're doing great. Yeah, so this has been a fun little time. When was the last time that the Red Devils were on tour in the USA? It was like 7-8 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think they kept on saying like first time in like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, because I think like I'm trying to think like 2016 or 17 they played in Miami, right?
Yeah.
They played against like maybe Real Madrid, is that right?
No, I think Real Madrid was out west. It was somebody random. I don't remember.
I don't know. So, but this is pretty cool, and it's the first time I've been able to enjoy it, and I've been able to participate a little bit. I went to the New York festivities, and that was really cool. A lot of people, there's all this like banter going on about the how much support Manchester United gets and how big a club they are. I think it's like the silliest stuff ever. It's all
I need to hear some of that. I don't understand. It's like, oh, you guys are so popular, even though you've been trash for like 10 years.
Yeah. So
what a horrible thing that is.
Yeah, it's great. I don't get it. And I guess it goes to my like larger realization, and you guys probably have realized this for a while, but the only people that care about Manchester United more than Manchester United fans are Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
Especially here.
Yeah.
Even in England too.
No,
England too. Yeah.
And on the internet. And I know the internet is not a gauge for, but like all and I understand a lot of this is just trolling for engagement, because if you talk about Manchester United, you get more engagement on social media. But all Arsenal fans seem to be able to talk about is whether if we fill the stadium, then it's like, oh my God, they get all this money from filling a stadium. They should be able to, they should be so good, and they're not. Or if we don't fill the stadiums, like, oh, Manchester United is no longer a big club. Look, all these empty seats. And then, if we spend money, it's like, oh, you spend a lot of money. You complain about your owners. If we don't spend money, it's like, oh, you're not a big club anymore. It's just it's like an incessant stream of just garbage from
Arsenal and Chelsea
Adam? Fans.
You know what it is, Adam? I always say this with people. It's PTSD from their childhood, growing up where Manchester United was the big boy in town for a decade straight. So like as soon as like somebody else punches the bully in the face, the guy who was getting bullied pops up like talking crap like he could do it. But it's all PTSD from people's childhoods. 100%. They like to see us back down to earth.
Yeah, it must be so. The amount of vitriol I have towards like the Patriots. Like I'm a Raiders fan, so like I dream about the tuck rule and stuff like that, and like the vitriol that I had. I thought that I would like be obsessed. Like I was like, I'm ready to just like slam dunk people into the garbage can who are Patriots fans, blah blah. And they were bad. I just stopped caring. I was like, oh well, they're bad now, so I don't really have to worry about it anymore. So I can't. It must be so much more for people to give a shit like that far afterwards.
No, you're right, because it's been a decade since those battles, and still I'm confident that Arsenal would prefer that we didn't win the league to them winning the league. It is just this like disgust, it's a disgusting I mean it's PTSD, but that almost lets them off the hook. They are kind of like, I feel like they have agency over this, and they are like knowingly choosing to root against Manchester United more than they're choosing to root for Arsenal. And Chelsea probably not far behind. I see like a lot of Chelsea stuff, and surprisingly for me, I guess it's because
they're just grasping at straws.
Yeah,
they gotta care about something.
That's what I think, and like you see that Liverpool and Man City fans, to the extent that there exist any, they are almost, because of their success recently, they're almost like not doing that, which is I don't see the Liverpool fans doing that nearly as much as Arsenal and Chelsea fans. But you're right, it's the grasping at straws part, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to. I mean, I actually think that some of their players are going to be good players. I don't think they're going to be as good next year as you think they're going to be, but I think that a lot of their players can be really, really good and at least really fun to watch. Like, I think that Mushrik is kind of a dick, but I think that he's like
No, he's
going to be at
solid.
least really entertaining.
And Enzo,
Yeah. Again, his highlights. If you guys haven't watched that video on it was why Jorginho has 0 assists. Please go watch that YouTube video. It's fantastic. It's just him pinging the most gorgeous Paul Scholes-esque balls to these wide open players, and then just launching it out of the stadium, then not even hitting the ball. But it is really funny. And some of Enzo Fernandez's highlights from last year were just all that, like him just being masterful and just everyone else squandering chances.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I'm worried a little bit about Chelsea. You have no concern, right? You think they're just a mess?
I think
still
they are a mess for sure. I really like the hire of Poch for them. I think he's going to be good, but he's not a miracle worker. Like, it's going to take some time for them to get their stuff together for sure.
It's going to be like us, I think. It's going to, but I think they come from they have a better foundation because they have better players to start with than Ten Hag had to start with last season. So I think that they're like 6 months advanced from where we were a year ago. But I think that Poch is, I don't think he's as good as Ten Hag. I don't think he's kind of near as good as Ten Hag. And I would have liked Poch when we were talking about replacements for Ole after kind of the Liverpool drubbing 2 seasons ago, and then the Man City.
Me too, Carter.
That's what you guys. All right,
and
so
we're back.
Yeah, thank you, G. It's funny, right before telling the audience here, right before we got back after my internet went kaput, we were talking about how to get back in, and G was just like, all right, you just do it, I'm not going to say anything. And then right as I started talking, and we're back.
100%. You gotta pull the rug under you.
I love it. I deserve to be put in my place. Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about Stormzy off mic, and then and I've never felt older than that conversation. But as the listener left off, we were talking about Pochettino, and I was kind of saying that when Ole like clearly needed to go and the system wasn't working, the dressing room was in shambles, it seemed like no good could come out of Manchester United. Poch was at the top of my list of replacements, but obviously I hadn't taken the deep dive as most of us, I don't think, had at that point into Ten Hag. And at the time, even Ten Hag was my guy after I learned that it was a possibility. But I'm not hopeful. I'm optimistic. That's probably the wrong word. Also, I think that Chelsea is going to be decent under Poch.
Expectant.
Yeah, I don't want them to be good, but what I was kind of saying was I think that they have a better starting foundation than Ten Hag did last year, and Poch is a decent coach, not as good as I think Ten Hag is. So where do you guys feel that Chelsea are at this point? It's kind of year one of their rebuild, and they've gotten the other thing that is crazy about Chelsea. They sign these huge contracts. Right?
Well, every year's a rebuild, right? Because they just cycle through everything every single year.
But it's almost like they're annoying to me for a lot of reasons, but they bought all these players, right? They had like 60 players on their active roster. They spent like tons of money, and they got let off the hook. And
they're lucky that Saudi Arabia is doing all this right now. If they weren't, they'd be a little bit.
Yeah, you say lucky. Some people say that
by design,
that it's by design, because Saudi Arabia owns essentially a part of Chelsea, and so they could be on both sides of these transactions. But that's what bothers me so much. We can't offload our players, and granted, a lot of our players suck and they have big contracts and big wages.
Yeah,
but Chelsea gets like a redo because they can sell all of their surplusage.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I guess we could do the same thing, but
Who would buy
it's.
them?
I mean, I was saying anybody in Saudi Arabia would probably have Maguire, but
I think they've tried to shop. Maguire has tried to shop himself around. I think, Maguire has said, and I think it's a good time that we should probably talk about Maguire, because, it's great. We've talked about this, Carter, you and I, and gee, I don't know if we've had this discussion with you yet, but it's like, why is the English press talking about Harry Maguire all the time? And then every time we turn on the mics, it's like there's something to talk about Harry Maguire, and it's insane, because obviously he's our fourth or fifth choice center back, right? But there's just an endless amount of stuff to talk about with Harry Maguire. So I want to kind of like set some of the facts just for our beginning listeners who aren't consuming everything, and then I'll send it to you guys for your just general thoughts about Harry Maguire. So the basic situation is, and we've talked about this a lot, we bought him for a lot of money from Leicester 4 seasons ago. He was made club captain. He performed well under Ole. It was clear that he couldn't play under Ten Hag's high line ball playing center back system, and has been laughably horrible for the past year and a half, 2 years. He clearly shouldn't have been the captain for a lot of this time, and he was relegated to the bench all last season. Bruno Fernandes was the de facto captain, and then this season Ten Hag made the tough, they call it ruthless. I don't think it's ruthless. I just think it's a tough decision and a tough thing to do by stripping an active player of the armband. He gave it to Bruno Fernandes, and then there were kind of 2 added insults to injury. Harry Maguire started last match against Real Madrid, and I'm sorry, against Dortmund.
Preseason match.
Last preseason match against Dortmund. He wasn't even captain, and Bruno Fernandes did not, and he wasn't even the captain when Bruno Fernandes was not out there. Scott McTominay, your boy, Carter.
Yeah, well, that's a given.
Yeah,
that's how it should have been in the first place.
Yeah, I'm sure
Captain material, baby.
Yeah,
Captain
you weren't
material.
shedding any tears about that. And then Maguire, we could talk about it a little bit, but he had a mixed performance. I think he did some good things. He might have been at fault for one of the goals that United gave up. They lost 3-2 again preseason, but Andre Onana, our new keeper, wasted no time. Actually, this wasn't after a goal. It was after a save that Onana made on a close shot. He ran right up to Harry Maguire, got in his face, and yelled at him.
So I've watched that a few times. Is he yelling at Justin, or is he yelling at McTominay? Because McTominay made a mistake too, and so did basically the whole right side of the field. Every single thing that they could have done wrong, they did wrong, and it was like I was trying to pick out. I was like, I know he's yelling, and he's definitely yelling at Maguire. And I was like,
yeah, I mean, he was yelling at everybody. He just happened to be right next to Maguire, and obviously
he ran right up to him though. He
did, yeah.
And he was
it was everybody on the right side.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, he was yelling at people ahead of him also. But obviously, they
didn't cost $80 million.
There's a vacuum to anything for Maguire, that everything gets sucked into that vortex. So, but I love that for my goalkeeper. I know the English press was killing it because, God forbid, somebody yell at one of their beautiful little baby boys.
It's also that everyone thinks that it's very annoying that Pickford does it, because he does it, every minute of 90 minutes. And it's
every single top goalkeeper yells at the defender.
I remember I asked one of my friends who played, and I was like, "Yo, what are they saying most of the time? Like, it's because like sometimes there's a mistake, but sometimes they just do it, and it doesn't seem like there's anything going on, and they're like, no one listens, so it doesn't matter." They're like, they said something along the lines of, they talk all game to the point where if you listen to everything that they said, you wouldn't be able to play.
Well, go ahead.
And Maguire literally looked at him while he was yelling and looked away and started running away. Like it didn't bother him whatsoever.
Well, he plays with Pickford.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's played with goalies his whole life. All goalies are crazy.
Yeah, I find about that. I find it weird. I find it weird. It makes me uncomfortable, and this might be, my American sensibilities, but I always found it weird, and I found it just weird to have a teammate that has the license, and the sport almost gives them the license to scream at players just in the box, right? Like the go ahead.
Oh well, I was thinking about like every goalkeeper, and I was thinking about Evra. That was one of the English things where like Evra, pick your best starting 11, and he was like, I can't remember who he said now. It was either De Gea or it was Van der Sar, where he was like, he was the best goalkeeper I played with that didn't get up every single save and scream in our face, and he was like, and I made us a better team, which I'm sure that's not always the case. Van der Sar and De Gea are also very good goalkeepers. You know, it's a little different. Like they obviously could fit into a best 11.
So Peter Schmeichel infamously screamed at his players all the time, and this conversation started coming up again when Onana did that, because that was kind of brought on as the example of, well, Peter Schmeichel did it and we were great when Peter Schmeichel was our keeper, so this is okay and this is normal. But if you read kind of the stuff that people say, like Keane, like they would get into fistfights. That like he hated that, and it was not good for morale. It was not good.
I was going to say, you say
what
that.
Keane says.
No, but you say that, but Keane picked his 11, and Peter Schmeichel was his goalkeeper, and he said when he picked him that he's an absolute crazy person, but he's a great goalie, and that's what you need from a goalkeeper.
Okay, so I think that you can separate. So my sister said something funny. We were talking about kind of like how you can't get a doctor who both has like a good bedside manner and who's competent. Like you need to choose. And my sister was like, you don't have to choose one or the other. You can have both. And that's kind of my opinion about goalkeepers. Like maybe you can have both, someone who's competent and who doesn't scream at
and does it make you feel bad for sucking? That's your American sensibilities for sure.
So but here's the thing. So I get so Ten Hag is like really good at this. I think he can talk to somebody and criticize them without doing it performatively. Peter Schmeichel did it performatively, and the way, it just bothered me the way that Onana like ran up and strutted like right up to Maguire. Like it was like very clear he was yelling. You can yell at someone without telling like a national audience or international audience, I'm yelling at this person. So it just felt weird to me. I'm a big Onana fan. Like I think he's already revolutionized the way that we play, but it's just weird for me to watch. And it's like what you were saying, G, that
and like for everybody at home, Adam literally sits on WhatsApp all day saying how good he thinks Onana is going to be, how much he loves the signing. Like it's
the only thing I do. I quit my job.
I'm surprised that you didn't say that. Like, oh, I used to hate it, but when I saw him do it, oh, I love it now.
Yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable because it's like it's either they're ignoring him and that's bad, or they're not and they feel shitty about it, and it almost just. I don't want anything to interfere with kind of the good vibiness of the team that I think is being built.
I think you're reading way too much into it. And I think it's just like what Carter was saying. It's just a given that goalkeepers are crazy and yell at people. Like
and there's also a funny, not quite from like pundits who played in different positions. There is a hypocrisy because I swear to God, every game that United played for the past 10 years, one of the analysts, the player commentators, would go, there's no one out there on that team that's going to grab someone and scream in their face. There's no one who's going to grab them by the jersey. No one's going to go into half. They're always saying that Manchester United needs Roy Keane in the middle, which is the funny thing about Roy Keane saying about Peter Schmeichel, that they need somebody like Roy Keane to grab somebody by the shirt and be like, what are you doing? You need to do this, and like get in their face. And I always think it's really funny that like when a goalkeeper does it, again, I also think it's kind of annoying, even though that's just how it is. I do think it's funny when they're like, when we look at goalkeepers and them doing it, it's weird. But they would say like, oh, but if there's a midfielder who gets in people's faces or like the captain center back does it, then it's okay. That's what you need in a team. But the goalkeeper, goalkeepers are othered a little bit, which I think is a kind of a part of it. It's like, oh, like that person's barely part of the team. How dare they yell at everybody?
Yeah.
It's so there's a little bit of an othering going on. Not that they're millionaires. It's not like the super sad thing, but I think that's kind of part of it, is that like a lot of players look at goalkeepers and they're like, well, you're barely there. You don't practice with us. It's like kickers. Not exactly, but like, they do a specialized job. Well, less so, more less so now, but still specialized. And it's like, well, you don't, getting yelled at by someone you barely see is like a weird thing. But that's just how it is. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
But Onana also has more of a right, I think, to yell than Pickford or a lot of others that do a lot of Peter Schmeichel, certainly, who did a lot of yelling because he plays as an outfield player and he plays as a center back. He plays in the build-up. He's more a defender and less just I'm on my line and I'm going to yell at you about your positioning. So I get it, and I get that point. I want to play for you guys this was the interview that Onana gave in the mix zone after the Dortmund game, and he was asked. This was on MUTV, so it's just kind of interesting.
This is I demand a lot, right?
Yeah.
I assume. Yeah.
Thanks, Carter, for ruining the.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, excellent. Content. All right, here we go. Oh,
unlock it.
I'm trying.
Well, we've been enjoying our first few glimpses of you as a player.
Is this working?
Yeah.
About you. So we're seeing what you're like as a player on the pitch in terms of your positioning. You're so confident. You also demand a lot of your teammates. Is that what you're like as a person?
Yes, of course. I demand a lot of my teammates because also them, they demand a lot. They trust on me. They play a lot of ball based to me. So I have to give them confidence, and I want my players to give me confidence, of course. Demand them a lot, and I will demand them a lot because they are great players. Now, for me, so people not to play with these defenders. Martinez, Arik, they are doing great things. They are important players for the club, and I'm there to be part of this team and playing with them something great.
So when I was growing up, I used to enjoy watching Peter Schmeichel berating his defenders.
All right, so
sorry, dog's freaking out.
What's that?
I don't know if that came over the mic. My dog's freaking out.
Oh, I didn't.
So not only did I ruin the punchline, I ruined the interview too. So
no. Yeah. So what do you guys take from Onana's comments about the the confrontation is demanding a lot, like you said?
I love it. Where has this been for the last 15 years? Like, we want players to demand the best, and we used to have, Roy Keane, obviously, but there was Roy Keane, Schmeichel, after that, Rio, Vidic, Rooney to a certain extent, Giggs to a certain extent, Scholes quietly, but still, like, we used to have a team full of players demanding the best. And if it starts with the goalkeeper, that's fine with me. Like, they see the entire field. They're the only players that can see the entire field. So, like, don't make mistakes and you won't get yelled at. Like, it's, I want players like that to demand the best out of their teammates. And he has to take accountability himself too. You shouldn't be getting
which he does.
And
I know that he
does, and I think he will.
I know that he made a big mistake a while ago, and he was he's like, that was my fault.
100%.
So he seems like he's going to be that kind of player.
And if you stick in that vein, I think it's going to be fantastic. I am so excited for him to play for us.
Yeah, and it's important to note that Martin, it's not going to mostly be Maguire, but I'm out there on the take. I think on the WhatsApp, I'll put it here, that if Maguire stays, and that's a big question mark, if Maguire ends up staying, and it almost seems like he might, because he's not getting the type of valuation that Manchester United probably expects. He's
20
on
mil from West Ham. Jesus.
Yeah, the problem is, I think this is why the price is being artificially deflated, is because he's on high wages. He's on his bought from Leicester for whatever ungodly 70 million, right? Was that the sum?
70, 80.
Yeah. So he's on wages that befit a 70 million pound defender. Who's
an international? Like, I think that 20 million for an international for a country like England, I think that is a little disrespectful, and I get it, but you can't come in with that when you got all the Declan Rice money. They're gonna go, well, where's the rest of the Declan Rice money? We're not gonna get 80 million, but 40, and he's an international who starts for one of the better teams in the world.
Right.
So it's hard to, it's rough because it's hard to ignore the good parts, right? Or at least the like the good parts on paper. When you're coming in with a valuation like that.
Well, I think that's because of the wages, right? I think that they're essentially cutting the wage, what they anticipate the personal terms are going to be, something that he's, they're going to overpay him in wages because it's the only way that he would go, right? And so they're taking that off the transfer fee. And I don't, same with like Martial and, Sancho would have been the same problem. It doesn't look like he's even on the trading block. But I think the same problem is that these players are going to demand the wages or something similar to the wages that they're getting at Manchester United. And so that means that we're not going to be able to offload them. But my take is that even Maguire is going to look better. And I think he did for that matter, up against Dortmund. He looked better with Onana because he is able to play in the way that Ten Hag wants, but he and De Gea were each other's kryptonite. Neither of them were comfortable or confident on the ball, and certainly they weren't comfortable or confident on the ball together, and it compounded the issues. But Onana, I already see him making Maguire better, and to Maguire's credit, I thought he looked pretty good moving the ball and working with Onana, being in the right place in that Dortmund match. And I think we might see more of that if he gets any playing time.
He does move the ball well. Like that's what he did at Leicester all the time. Like that's why it keeps driving me crazy. And I agree. And we've said it 1,000 times.
And also to both of your point, I think we as a society, we as the fan group do a real disservice to Harry Maguire. He's not a bad player.
He's not.
He's a good player who makes a lot of bad mistakes, and he's probably not Manchester United level if you want to compete for winning Champions League and the Premier League. But he can help a lot of teams in the top 8, maybe even the top 4. I feel like he could start for Chelsea. I feel like
now that Poch is there,
Tottenham.
that Poch is there, I wouldn't be.
Him and Dan Burn would be a good partnership. So it's like, he is a good player. He might not be a top 2 team in the league starting everyday center back, but
that's also the thing about teams, right? Is like the nobody thought about John Stones, right? Until basically this year,
until Pep made him a central midfielder.
Yeah, but it's just like, there's players on Arsenal that are just like, they don't seem like they were that good, and then it kind of just kept getting better and better and better, and they didn't have to do all the work. And good teams are good teams, I guess. Is like, not everybody has to be a superstar. And I think that Maguire, again, I think that the Maguire captaincy thing is like, I will defend why he became captain. Like,
it makes sense.
Like who we were as a team, and he was the defensive leader, and I think it was a good idea, but it obviously was a bit much. We wouldn't care if he wasn't on, if the numbers were different, right? When the numbers don't actually matter to us, right? As fans, like they don't affect us at all. It's just about the conversation. And yes, it is important. You overpay for players. It's a bad look because it affects your buying strategy for however many years, depending how bad the deal is. Like, gee, you're a Knicks fan, right?
Why are we bringing that up? Where are we going here?
Like the mid 2000s contracts, or is it the 80s contracts? That like
or the 90s contracts,
yeah,
or the 2010s contracts, or the 2020 contracts.
But like it hamstrung the team for like 10 years.
10, 60.
Well, yeah,
60 years.
I was trying to be generous.
This is a Manchester United podcast. Why are you doing this to me, Carter?
Man, I didn't realize you were
just
Knicks,
to be mean.
Knicks and Manchester United fan.
I know it's been a rough. It's been a rough 10 years for me.
Well, I'm a Raiders and Manchester United fan, so I'm like,
I'm a Jets fan, so I gotta
spread it around.
I'm a Jets fan, although can't wait for Hard Knocks. We're gonna be fun. Must watch TV.
You seem the only one excited for Hard Knocks.
Listen,
because Aaron Rodgers surely ain't excited for Hard Knocks.
Hey, listen. It's all bait and switch. You're gonna see they're gonna be TV darlings. Just
hey, John Wiener's a Jets fan. I'm always gonna root for the Jets. I wanted Derek Carr to go to the Jets, but
yeah.
John Wiener likes Stugatz.
John, he's our designer's husband. The one who designed the crest, the logos, all that.
Stugatz from the Levitard show. His real name is John Wiener. So
really?
and he's a Jets fan. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought you like knew
And he's married to
Stugatz.
this.
Oh yeah. Our designer at the Miami Red Devils has two husbands, both named John Wiener. One of them Stugatz.
But yeah, so all I was saying was that like
the
yes,
contracts,
like the contracts are bad, but like to us don't actually matter, and it doesn't really have that much to do with the player. So it's like we talk about the numbers and all that, and it's like he's okay, but he's not
right. So we talk about this with
perfect.
Anthony. We're gonna talk about this with Mount, and we're gonna talk about this with Hojlund, and we'll I want to do Hojlund next, but we talk about this a lot, and it's an interesting thing to think about. We talked about this, I remember, with the clean sheet thing. It's like this thing doesn't matter, so we shouldn't care about it. But then the press cares about it, and then they get asked about it at press conferences, and then you have to imagine that it's in the players and the manager's mind, because it becomes like the thing that doesn't matter, as long as it's talked about enough, it starts to matter. And so I agree with you that the price that we paid for Anthony and the price that we paid for Harry Maguire and the price that we then paid for Mount and Hojlund shouldn't necessarily be burdens on them, but you just have to imagine that because it gets talked about so much, especially from our rival fans, because it gets talked about so much, you think that it might weigh on the players a little bit, just to know how much they cost, and it adds the pressure. So I want to talk about Rasmus Hojlund. We talked about him a little bit when it seemed like it was going to happen, and it now has happened. The official announcement is probably going to be by the time that you're watching this, and you might even know his shirt number. But Rasmus Hojlund, the 20-year-old striker from Atalanta, Denmark international, has been purchased by Manchester United. The reported fee is I think around 70 million plus 10 million euro, so 65 million pounds or so. He scored 9 goals in Serie A last season. Didn't play tons of minutes. He wasn't in the starting 11 for about half the season. And I think he had another 4 in Champions League and Coppa Italia. And so how do we feel about this? This is our first striker under the age of 30 in as long as any of us can remember, right?
Since Lukaku.
And Lukaku is what, 24?
Something like that.
So mid 20s. So this is a very young. He's been called like a rough diamond that everyone is anticipating or hoping that Ten Hag will turn into an elite striker. There's a lot of buzz about this guy, and a lot of banter already comparing him to Hojlund, and just because their names are similar and they both have blonde hair. So, why don't you give us your take on whether you think this was a good signing, the price, and what you expect out of Rasmus Hojlund.
And another thing is him and Hojlund apparently don't like each other, which is going to be fun to watch.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of what you guys said is true. You kind of have to throw out the price. It's just Mickey Mouse numbers now. It's the transfer fees are just like outrageously ridiculous.
And Saudi Arabia is never going to help.
And Saudi Arabia is just throwing the numbers completely out of whack. But the player that we're getting, I think, is going to be, well, we'll see how he adjusts to the Premier League, but I think he has the potential to be very, very good. I don't think he's an alien. I don't think he's going to score 50 goals in his first year, but I think he's going to help and push this United team. He's very fast. He'll get behind the line, get some through balls in from Bruno, Casemiro, and Mount, and Eriksen too.
He's big as hell, right? Isn't he like 6'3"?
Yeah.
Is he that big?
Yeah, he's big.
6'3".
Yeah, he's a big boy. And he's a young lad.
One of his big things is his hold-up play. He's huge.
Yeah. So I think this is the first time a lot of these players are going to be playing with an actual number 9 and like a design number 9. All due respect to due to Anthony Martial, but so
and
I'm
Jadon
very
Sancho.
and Jesus and false 9 Sancho.
So Eric Ten Hag, sorry to interrupt you. I just thought this was funny.
No,
Eric Ten Hag was asked what's it going to be like to have, I think exactly what you're talking about. What's it going to be like to have a striker in the team? And he was like, we have striker, Rashford play up the middle and Jadon Sancho. And it's like, oh man, I love Ten Hag, standing out for his team, but But Sancho playing false nine, which he has a lot during preseason, is not the same as having an actual striker.
Not at all. And, you know, and to Sancho's credit, he did his job pretty well, you know.
He did.
But preseason,
He played really well, I thought.
It's we can't depend on that the rest of the year, or Mason Mount as false nine, which he's done in the past. And Rashford, he said it himself in the Gary Neville interview that he prefers to be on the left-hand side. Let him play on the left-hand side.
Absolutely.
Give him a number 4, give him number 9 to play through. And I think we might be in business. I'm not going to get too ahead of ourselves. We'll see how he plays first when he puts on that red, but I like it.
I mean,
like
think about the numbers that we're asking for, right? We don't need 35 goals to from our number 9 to
20 would be great. 20
would be great. It's not,
Rashford,
but still not even.
15
Oh, well, yeah,
Bruno.
but like let's say Rashford's production is.
It's got to be lower.
I mean, it's got to be, but whatever. Maybe he gets more assists. Who knows?
Yeah.
With the number 9, but if the number 9 can get 15, 20, that's so much better than we had before. And like it's all a progression. And there's teams we could beat if we had a striker. I mean, there's so many.
I'll settle for stay on the field before we even get to 15 to 20 goals. Just play. That would be great.
We had a striker that stayed on the field the entire.
You mean WEG 10?
WEG 10.
WEG 10, baby, my boy.
Wout Weghorst, yeah.
Yeah, and he was a striker in name only, unfortunately. I love him so much, but yeah, strikers usually put the ball in the back of the net. But yeah, and I think Hojlund is going to be really good for us, and I'm excited to see. I wish he was here for the U.S. trip. It would have been nice to get him some minutes under, but I think we got a couple more games coming up next week. I don't know if they're going to send the A team to the Dublin game or to the Old Trafford game. I don't know if they decided that yet, but I would assume he will play some role in one of those 2 games, and then we move.
Yeah, so we've got two preseason fixtures. The first one is against French team Lens at Old Trafford on Saturday morning, 7:45 a.m. Eastern.
Club Long.
And that I would imagine the first team starts that one. That's what I would guess. I'm not sure, because you have to imagine it's going to be completely different starting 11s, because they're going to Dublin the very next day, and it's probably not. They're probably going to travel. Whoever's starting the athletic club, this is Bilbao, Spanish club, and they're going to start. They're probably going to go to Dublin ahead of time. So
if I'm Ten Hag, I'd take the A team to Dublin. All respect to Lens. Racing Lens, or however you say it.
It's Racing Club.
Racing
Club Lens.
Ooh la la. Athletic Bilbao is a much better team.
Yes.
We've come across them in Europe in the last couple of years. Like, I think that'll be more of a test. And it's always good to reward fans from different countries seeing the main team. Like, Old Trafford is spoiled. They get to see them all the time. Like, it would be cool they have such a big fandom in Ireland. It would be cool to see.
It's huge.
See the first.
They talk about it all the time.
Yeah, they say Manchester is the capital of Ireland, and so and I think that's a good point to have them go play. For those of our viewers and listeners that don't know about Athletic Bilbao, really cool team, and there are a couple of these types of teams in Europe. This thing doesn't exist in American sports, but they are. Bilbao is in the Basque region of Spain, and it's a separate language. Basque is a language unto itself, and they recruit almost only Basque players to play at this club. And it's kind of crazy because it restricts their kind of recruiting base down to just players from this Basque region. But because of kind of, you can call it a bunch of things. I think it's called Cantera policy. But because of this, you almost have like this team unity and kind of a unified camaraderie that ends up with them being in the top 10 in La Liga every year, basically. And it's just kind of this bizarre. The
youth system set up at Bilbao is one of the best in Europe. Definitely,
because it's like if you're from the Basque region, you're not going to Real Madrid or Barcelona. You're going to Athletic Bilbao. So I think it's a really unique, and it's one of the reasons that we all love this sport, is these kind of bizarre situations that have just manifested over time.
That's why I always bring up that I don't I actually love the opening up, like the greater numbers in the different European tournaments. Like I love the opening up of that because I love that stuff. It usually, I mean, like everybody's like, oh, well, like the quality goes down. I'm like, if a team gets thrashed 10-0, I like watching that. If a team holds on to the last bit, gets beat 1-0, I like that too. I like seeing the weird things, and a lot of teams get, maybe not over the course of a whole thing, but they have a cool night, and I don't really care. I like the opening up. I think G was shaking his head.
Yeah, that aspect of it is cool if like more countries get more teams, but what it's going to turn out to be is England's going to get like 6, Spain is going to get like 6, and France, like it's going to be a lot more mediocre Western European countries.
I get that, and I hear that, but I do look forward to the other teams, because like the Irish teams, because like Irish teams, I love the Irish league. It's like I think they're professional, like 90% or 80% professional.
Yeah, Carter's a big Cork guy. He's a big Cork fan.
No, Galway.
He's a Galway girl.
I'm a Galway fan.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm a big Galway fan.
Well, so this is what the purpose of Europa Conference. I mean, the purpose of Europa Conference League is to make more money for UEFA. Yeah. but this is. I think this stuff is cool. I think it is cool, and obviously it would suck for Manchester United to go to the Conference League, and we almost did. We almost got bounced out of the Europa League down to the Conference League, or we almost didn't qualify for the Europa League last year, or two years ago, I guess now, and we almost ended up having to qualify for the Conference League. So it would have been a little silly for us to have to play, a full rebuild EPL season, FA Cup, EFL Cup, and Europa Conference League. Like, no Manchester United fan should care about Europa Conference League. But in the Europa League, it was awesome, I thought, to play Ammonia Nicosia from Cyprus, and to play.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it.
And they played the hell out of us. They played.
Yeah, they were beating us until the second half.
McTominay, late goal. Yeah, stoppage time goal to win. But that we've talked about it, but that Ammonia Nicosia, like, they're all Manchester United fans. So not just the fans, but the players. Like, the goalkeeper was standing on his head. He had 147 saves in that match, and he lost the game in the McTominay won it. It wasn't like he lost it, but that goalkeeper was so excited to be there after the game, after they had just lost in the Europa League. He was taking pictures with everyone. He went to the press conference. He was smiling. I love
that shit. That's the best. Like, I love that shit. Like, I know we've been very cynical in like the past few months because there's stuff to be cynical about. Well, I'm not saying that was wrong, but there is still a good part. There's a reason that we're fans.
No, we love this sport, and it's stuff like this. You're right.
Nice to be able to acknowledge the good, sweet, fun parts. Like, there's good stuff. I know. I feel like the past few months we'd be like, we're like saying like, don't watch the sport. Like, if you haven't learned it by now, it's like, don't watch it. But no, there's something special about the different things and the way the things set up.
Yeah, I agree. So the last thing I want to talk about on this session is kind of where we think the team is, because we're probably going to get one more midfielder. It might be Amrabat, it might be Romeo Lavia. This is all dependent on outgoings. I want to do like a deeper dive on FFP, financial fair play, and budgeting, because I think it's like a good conversation for us to have. There's some argument about it. I always get into it on the WhatsApp group about FFP, because I did a deep dive about it. I don't know, like 8 months ago or 10 months ago. I was like, I'm going to read all the regulations and start to understand this a little bit better. So I want to get into that later, but I want to just finish our conversation today in a discussion about kind of where we think the team is with the 3 incomings: Mason Mount, Onana, and now Rasmus Hojlund, and how we feel about where we are, especially compared to where we were last season.
I feel good. I'm excited. Getting the number 9 still, unknown quantity number 9 is still better, though, with what I was complaining about with Onana. Not that I was complaining about Onana, but that I was worried that there are mistakes that are going to happen to lead to goals, and if we can't score better, it's going to affect us. Ederson makes mistake, Alisson makes mistake, and they're great goalkeepers, but there's going to be goals. But if we're going to lose 1-0 off of a mistake off of a ball playing goalkeeper, then that's going to be rough if we can't fix that. And so hopefully with a striker we could fix it, at least mitigate the problem. So I'm excited. And Mount pressing, like if that really is going to be just his role, kind of the whole season, play 70 minutes, just sprinting at full speed the whole game, getting in people's faces, making solid passes, I can get down with that.
G, how do you feel?
Yeah, I echo Carter's sentiment. I just every time I get on this platform, I want to say that it was a terrible decision to make Mason Mount the number 7. But regardless,
and I agree with that. I agree with that. I think it's
regardless of
choice.
that,
You're saying to give him the shirt 7.
Yeah, to give him the shirt 7.
Yeah.
I think he will be a useful player for us for the reasons that Carter was saying. But yeah, I mean, it all starts and ends with the forward and the goalkeeper. I think those were 2 positions we are screaming for change. We've seemingly addressed it. We'll get the here we go, him holding up the shirt hopefully in the morning. But
I think we did get the here we go. We just haven't seen the shirt.
We still haven't seen the shirt.
Yeah.
So
for the people that don't know, this is the most bizarre thing I think in all of.
Also, surprise. He irritates the hell out of me with that. The way that he's turned it into like a catchphrase, it really gets under my skin.
It's the worst.
I don't know why.
So let me
playing Super Mario.
Let me tell the uninitiated listener or viewer. So this Italian journalist Fabrizio Romano, he for some reason is the only person that is trusted to give transfer news. And so when he says here we go, that means that a move is confirmed, that a sale or a purchase is confirmed. And I hate it too. I think it reminds me of when Tom Brady tried to make "Let's go" his catchphrase. It's like
LFG, baby.
Yeah.
LFG.
Well, it wasn't even LFG. It was just "Let's go." And I think it's the silliest thing, here we go. What does that even mean? And I also find it weird that there's like one journal, he's got 8 cell phones.
It's him and Ornstein, I think. But he always British, but he also aggregates. So he'll quote Ornstein and he'll quote the one other guy.
Yeah. But we like that. He gives credits to his other people.
Yeah. No, that is a good thing. That is a good thing.
So what we were saying is we got the here we go, which means the deal is confirmed. And we know that Hojlund was in Manchester today.
He was getting
he got his physical. Yeah. So there were a couple of things that you guys brought up that I wanted to comment on. So the Onana, we've talked about the Onana mistake situation, and you didn't chime in on this on the WhatsApp group, but so there was this article by Carl Enka, who's a Manchester United journalist, and
who annoys me, Carter.
Oh, really? I barely read it because they always pop up after a United game. It was like Carl Anka is live now in the Athletic whatever chat room. And I'm like, I'm not gonna hang out there.
I don't know. Carry on. Stupid XG stuff. Carry on.
All right. What were you saying? So he's a journalist with the Athletic. He put out an article, and most of the article was about how the headline of the article was basically like Onana is going to make mistakes. We need to be gentle with him. And so most of the article was explaining correctly that Onana's play style is so different than De Gea's that the mistakes that Onana is going to make are going to be very apparent, whereas the mistakes that De Gea made by not going out of his box and not being a ball playing goalkeeper were less apparent. Obviously the howlers, the De Gea big mistakes where he let a ball in by his feet or let a ball just dribble past him, those mistakes were apparent. But what you won't be able to necessarily see or quantify are the things that Onana does better by being kind of a sweeper keeper or a ball playing goalkeeper. And you won't always be able to see how he affects play positively, build up play positively.
Or that 80-yard dart pass he hit to Marcus Rashford right on the. It was
Bruno. Yeah. So that
no, there was 2. There was one to Rashford. There was one to
Rashford. Yeah, that's right. So you are going to be able to see those, and maybe he's going to have assists, right? He's going to have like an assist or 2, especially to Rashford. So you are going to be able to quantify that. But the point of the article is basically like Onana does all this stuff that De Gea didn't do, but that won't be quantified, but you're going to see the mistakes. And then the second part of the article, or most of the article, which I somehow missed, and then we like started talking about, was the racism that he's certainly going to encounter, because sports fans are racist assholes. So I don't really want to get into a race discussion, but I wanted to more just highlight the fact that you won't be, we won't be able to prove the counterfactual, which is if De Gea were here, he wouldn't have gone out to play these 7 balls. He wouldn't have brought the ball out to the midfield. This stuff wouldn't have happened if De Gea were here. But mistakes, De Gea would have conceded goals in a different way. And so the mistakes are just going to be really apparent when Onana makes mistakes. And you aren't always going to be able to quantify his value, except it's going to completely transform the way that we build up and the way that we defend from the back. I know it's hard to respond after I give a speech. Yeah. So
yes, I agree with you.
That's all I wanted. Yeah, that's all.
I agree with you. And we're gonna avoid the race part of it as much as you can. But I think Carl, rightly so, wants to like caution everybody, set the expectations at a reasonable level. Like, listen, there's gonna be some growing pains, but it's gonna be net positive. And I think that will be the case. Like we saw him in his debut game probably come out for a play that was probably offsides, but he came out for a play and got chipped. That'll happen more often. De Gea probably would have stayed on his line and maybe he would have saved that. So, but De Gea is not making the passes or the vision or anything comfortable with his feet. Like there was a period of play against Real Madrid where Lisandro Martinez kept on passing him back the ball, and I didn't hold my breath. It was so refreshing to be able to breathe while watching a goalkeeper play. So yeah, I think some patience will be necessary. And I think for the rest of the team, like you go into the season, and we'll do a bigger season preview at a different episode, but you go into every season nervous and excited, but you need these new players coming in a new system, time to adjust and time to figure out each other. And there's no different here with Onana. So, but I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I think the thing that we kind of lose sight of in general is like, if we play better, we play better, right? Like, which is, it sounds so stupid, but like, he could make mistakes, but if it does make our team better on the whole, then we're good, because the only thing that matters is the 3 points. If we win every game 1-0, playing the Catenaccio or whatever, like, I'd be fine with that. But as long as it works out, I'm happy. And if it doesn't work out perfectly, but we make progress, then I'm still happy. So I think that I don't want to get bogged down sometimes. Like, and I do it to myself where I'm like, or like I get bogged down in
this is you. This is you telling yourself.
Yeah, that's like, I get bogged down in analysis. I'm like, well, we won, so who cares? Like, there are things that are frustrating games, like teams that you should just wipe the floor with. You only win by 1. If that happens every time you play a team that you should wipe the floor with, then it's a little concerning when you come up against bigger clubs. But if it's every league winning side, every Champions League winning has a tough game against lower division sides or smaller clubs, they have to tough out and win every season, except for Arsenal's undefeated season. But even I bet they did not. Every game was a 5-0 thrashing. So as
they
long
had
as we
25
improve,
draws or something like that.
Yeah, as long as we improve, I'm happy. So that's all I want.
Yeah, and the other thing that we talked a little bit about was Mason Mount and his value. He's another guy that I think that the fan base is going to come to appreciate, but the Arsenal fans and the Chelsea fans who are just trying to slag off Manchester United players and transfer strategy will all talk shit about, because what Mason Mount does well doesn't show up on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
and he is going to be very, very valuable to us in defense, in pressing, like you mentioned. He's a really good possessor of the ball. He's not Bruno, for good and for bad. He's not going to be having these amazing outside boot passes that's going to completely unlock a defense. He can have those, but he's going to make smart runs, keep the ball, possess the ball, maintain possession. And the thing that we've kind of talked about a little bit is he's going to give Eriksen the ability to come on as an impact sub and do all of those amazing things that Eriksen can do, because he is a magician with the ball. He just doesn't have the legs anymore to be a two-way midfielder. And obviously you have to be a two-way midfielder. You can't just be a great crosser and passer of the ball. But if you look at a lot of our goals last season, certainly like almost every single goal that came off a cross was an Eriksen cross. And a lot of them were Casemiro finish.
And the Wan-Bissaka cross.
And one Wan-Bissaka cross. That's right. And I mean, that one was absurd. I don't even know.
And Eriksen's finished it. So
Eriksen did.
It all
Eriksen
ties
did
together.
Yeah, that was at Fulham, right? Was that Fulham?
I have no idea.
Yeah. So yeah, it all ties together. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we're going to see is, and I like this from Ten Hag. It's not going to necessarily show up on stat sheets, but it is improving the team as a whole. And that is Ten Hag's whole theory of everything, is kind of accountability and attention to detail being paramount. We've seen all these stories come out about Ten Hag, and everything is centered on team building. Like he makes them all sit for meals together, no phones. The goal celebrations.
We get it, Adam. You love Ten Hag.
Let me do all the reasons. The goal celebrations.
All 10 reasons, right?
Yeah. The 10 days of Ten Hag. Goal celebrations. He makes them like celebrate as a team, which I think is a hilarious thing, that like you don't do celebrations by yourself. You do it as a team. So he brought in obviously a psychologist, a chef that has like they both personalize nutrition and mental health for the players,
and obviously the choreographer for the
the choreographer for the celebrations. And then there were a couple stories that came out about the tour, that there were days off, and so the players had planned to go to like some of the players had planned to go to a Padres game, and Ten Hag said that everyone is required to have team dinner together he's gotten so detailed, which, if we play poorly, we're going to point to this as this guy he was like Jimmy Carter. He was focusing on the tennis schedule at the White House instead of, our Iranian hostage crisis. But Ten Hag has detailed, or at least delegated to his other coaches, that the dress code for the following day and training down to the sock color, and then pays attention if somebody is there's a consequence if you're wearing white socks when you were told to wear black socks. So it's like it's almost like the attention to detail it's almost like I hate to bring this up, but it's almost like a militaristic thing where it's the discipline and self-respect comes from the structure, and we had to do it in marching band too. If you not always we had it at practice, but sometimes we did have it at practice, and it was the same kind of thing. And it's like, it's annoying, but if you respect your director, you get it, and you're like, all right, well, everybody's buying in. And so Ten Hag would be a great marching band director, right?
He would be a ridiculously good Sousa all over the place.
No, he wouldn't. I've seen his dancing. He has absolutely no rhythm.
You just gotta tell me about it. You just gotta tell me about a dance.
Yeah. He doesn't need to do the dancing.
He would be marching you guys off beat. It would be terrible.
His dancing was so awkward. It was great to see it, but it was like, it was super goofy. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine him being a good dancer though? That would be completely bizarre if Ten Hag just turned out to be just a gorgeous dancer.
I would love it, but yeah, you're right. He does not fit the bill for sure.
Yeah, so I guess all in all, I'm very bullish on this season in Ten Hag. Um, the only other issue that I wanted to bring up before we say goodbye, and this is maybe a dour note, is it is now looking like Manchester. Well, certainly there will be no owners when we start the season. No new owners when we start the season, a week from Monday. But it's growing increasingly unlikely, especially with some news today, that Manchester United is going to be sold. The reports have mostly been that the valuation that the Glazers were looking for was around £8 billion, which is higher than I had thought that they would be looking for. I thought they were,
might as well make it $1 trillion.
yeah.
It's like,
And I guess you can understand, these numbers kind of sound crazy or meaningless in a vacuum, but there has been a pretty aggressive bidding process between Jim Ratcliffe's group and the Qataris that have brought the valuation up to £6 billion. So there are two, for without getting into the details, two £6 billion offers. And the reporting is that the Glazers want another 33% on top of that they won't sell for anything under £8 billion. And so if that's the case, that means that the Glazers are going to stay. They're going to have to get financing because the club has so much debt that it costs millions of dollars each year to finance the debt, essentially like the way that you pay a mortgage, right? And so they're going to have to get financing probably from American private equity, but it's growing increasingly unlikely that the Glazers are going to sell. But in spite of that, they have bought players over and above what they had said they could in this season for FFP. So how are we feeling about the prospect of at least another 6 months and more likely another foreseeable future in Glazer ownership?
I don't know. It's like, it just goes back to being the same. So whatever. I don't know. It's like,
well, it's not going to be the same, right?
Well, it'll be, we'll have the same complaints, I guess, if the players aren't good. But we think they will be, so it's different. But
yeah, I guess so. What do you think if the team if we perform better? That's the thing. Like the question will always be if we perform better and the transfer strategy works and John Murtaugh is doing a good job, and I think he is. I know it's controversial to say that someone that the Glazers hired is doing a good job, but I think Eric Ten Hag is doing a good job, who the Glazers hired. And so if this all works, does that change how you guys feel? It's not going to change how Glazers out diehards are going to feel about it, but does that change how you guys are going to feel about the Glazers if we come in second and win a trophy this season, or we're at least in sniffing distance of Manchester City? There's a title race at some point. Does that change how you will view Glazer ownership?
No.
You go ahead. I'm like,
no. This is a Jamaica jersey. It's just
green and gold.
Also green and gold, ironically. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but no, listen, you don't get credit for what you're supposed to do as owners of a sports franchise or a club as big as Manchester United. Yes, you're supposed to hire competent people. Yes, you're supposed to make good financial decisions. Yes, you're supposed to transfer good players. No, you don't undo 13 bad years just because you happen to luck up on a good coach who has made the right transfers. No, it's green and gold till it's sold. If they have to stay or protest or whatever, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Hopefully they do get sold. And if they stay on, no one's going to be happy. Yes.
Yeah. You know how many people
reflected a little bit if your team is doing well, but no, I'm not going to be happy that the Glazers are there. I'm never going to be Glazers in. No, absolutely not. It changes nothing.
Gee, you know how many times, and you'll see it. Do you have access to the social media yet?
No.
When you get it at least twice a season, somebody sends a message that I never respond to, which if you're listening to this, there's a reason I don't respond to it, is because rich people are scary. Is that every year, like 2 or 3 people are like, hey, do you want to go like like we're in Manchester. You should go to their house in Tampa and like protest outside their house. And I was like, first of all, you don't understand how far Tampa is from where we live. Second of all, rich people are scary. No, I'm not gonna go do that. But
Third of all, there's video here now, so they can see what I look like. They will shoot me in the face.
Yeah,
You
Carter
can
and
do
I
that,
can
Carter.
go.
Maybe
Yeah.
Adam could do that. I'm not doing that in Tampa. Absolutely not.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
in Tampa.
Yeah, so I don't think it's ever going to change. It doesn't, like you said, there's the past is still a thing that they did and that they did poorly. And then the team being successful, there's also all the other shit with like the facilities, the training, the stadium, all that. Them like barely being a part of the club. Like, yeah, there are
the
teams
dividends.
there are teams that are worse than us that have their owners go to every game, and I know that's not a perfect situation. Like, would I rather be better or worse? I get that, but I'd rather be better and have our owners like care and like, or the other way, just completely removed. Here's the check. Fix Carrington, fix Old Trafford. Here's the check. Do your thing. Like, if that's how it was, I'd be fine with that. Or if they just woke up tomorrow and cared, that'd be better. But they don't get off the hook for. We've had a bunch of okay seasons, or at least like statistically okay seasons. They're not okay for us because they didn't win shit. But like, we've had enough of okay seasons.
Yeah, we came in second 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's like, but they don't get credit for that. Like it's frustrating, and there's gonna be people who are gonna say like, well, why don't they get credit for that? And it's like, because they didn't do anything different. It was just either lucky or the right coach, the right players, right circumstance, right games won, other teams lost, weak league. There's reasons that aren't them for why we finished well in certain seasons. And again, I know we don't, like you always say, like the thing that Ronaldo was right about in that Piers Morgan video is the state of the facilities. He's like, never heard a good thing about them, that they're rough and that needs to be fixed. But they're not gonna put the money in. So that's still a bad thing.
No, they did put in. There's a big.
Well, they
story
put in like a
$200,000. Yeah, $200,000 in like a scouting room. Or
you
something,
get like a Peloton.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a big story that they upgraded, and it was $200,000 worth of facilities put in. So, yeah, I think that G brings up a good point, and so do you, Carter. That basically you don't get credit for doing what you should have been doing the whole time. And now, if Manchester United, if the Glazers stay in Manchester United, go on to win a bunch of trophies under Ten Hag and under Glazer ownership, then we'll revisit. But I think that's right, that Manchester United, just based on the volume of money and fandom that Manchester United has as a global brand, needs to be challenging for titles every single season. And it's not a salary cap. It's not an American sport. There's no salary cap. They can spend as much as they bring in, and they bring in more than anyone. So they should be spending more than anyone. And they do spend a lot of money. That's true. I don't want to get into whether it's the club or whether it's finance, the spending. They do spend a lot of money, but historically it's been extremely poor spends that have hamstrung the team for years. It's all we were talking about in the first section. Harry Maguire, Jadon Sancho, Martial, huge wages that we can't offload. We can never sell for a profit. So all of that stuff is not the Glazers not spending money. It's the Glazers spending lots of money poorly because they put in bankers to run the club when they should have been putting in football people.
We need to see Johnny Evans' short-term contract, or else he's never going to let it go.
Yeah,
Johnny, $500,000 a week wages for 6 months or whatever.
He is getting a contract. It looks like it. So I can't wait to get my Evans shirt. That's going to be it. All right. So before, I want to, I picked the heaviest topic to finish on. So the one thing that we haven't talked about is the new shirts. So Carter, you're wearing the second shirt. Show the folks there. So it looks great. So it is forest green with white stripes and then red pins, kind of like a Christmas spearmint. What do the Brits call them? They call them Father Christmas. It's bizarre.
Yeah, Father Christmas. Yes,
it's so weird. So what do we think about the second? So the first shirt it's red and it's got some like design on it. What do we think about the second shirt?
I really like it. I think I like the different shirts, as you guys well, I mean, maybe not listeners, but I like ugly things. Ugly. What other people think are ugly. I know G has the whole black and white like navy camo jumpsuit. It looks sick, and I have one of those kits.
The greatest jersey we've ever had.
Yeah, I love it. But this one is great. Literally, because I'm a long sleeve guy. Only thing that I don't love about it, I was telling G when the internet went off, is that the DXC is like also kind of like that tape, that like duct tape feeling. And so when I pull the sleeves up, it kind of scrunches. Yeah. So there's your jersey review, but otherwise I love it. I really, really, really like it.
Yeah. So the authentic, I'm not advocating anyone buy whatever, but the authentic ones are so much better. The authentic green ones are so much better than the replica ones. The authentic ones don't have the like duct tape feel of the sponsors. Like the team viewer is printed on. It's not like a I don't know, like a vinyl badge. And there's also like this really great detail in the authentic. I haven't bought it because it's $150, and like,
yeah, that's why I didn't buy it either.
I'm not going to justify that for a kit, but it's just, you can see a stark difference between the authentic kit and the replica one.
I always have got a replica, because the way it used to be was the only difference was that the badge in replica is sewn and the other one is steamed, because on authentic ones they just rip the badge off and they wash it and they put the badge back on. But I guess it's not that way anymore. So, well,
they give their shirts to the other team.
Everyone always.
I always watch that. I think it's crazy. Did you guys see that after the Real Madrid game, Casemiro was hanging out with Modric and Cruz, and then Ancelotti came out and they were all like pinching his fat because he like wasn't wearing he had given his shirt to someone, and so they're like, oh, and then obviously our rival fans have ran with that, like, oh, imagine spending 70 million pounds on a player and then he's fat. And it's like, first of all, what do you mean imagine spending 70 million pounds on a player? You imagine I'm like an own, like, what does that mean? Like, imagine I own a club and I'm like, it's like they're trying to own us, but it's like, oh, that would be great if I could spend 70 million on a player. Like, what does that even mean? Second of all, he obviously gets in shape before or at least during the season, and he's
few people are built different. They still say that Shaw is fat. It's just not true. It just isn't. He's bigger.
Shaw is fat.
No. he's a rugby player. He's just a stocky bull.
He's fat.
He's super fast.
Have you seen what is his name? Morelos for Rangers? Have you seen him? He's fat. He's a fat out of shape soccer player, professional athlete.
What about that Dortmund? Did you guys see that Dortmund center back? That Dortmund center back,
dude,
was
Nicolas Sula,
fat guy. Yeah,
he's the before picture for Shaw.
I wanted Nicolas Sula on our team so badly. I love Nicolas Sula. Yeah. I think that he's awesome.
So that guy's fat. So that guy looks like, if I had to imagine like a guy playing darts at a pub in England, just like crushing beers and playing darts, like that guy looks like a dart player. That he looks like a professional darts player, that guy. And he outran Sancho to a ball. I was like, oof, Sancho, that is a bad look. And Sancho had a head start on him, and that guy closed the distance.
Because Nicolas Sula is an animal, because all this stuff is made up. They're professionals. Only a few people really show up fat. Eden Hazard's done it. Morelos does it every year, and somehow that guy is still somehow professional. Another podcast, we'll talk about strikers and how like you can score 2 goals in like 7 years and you're still making like 6 figures like a week. That's like Goldrick. How does that dude play in a top league? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's so irritating. Well, I'll leave that.
We have that on our roster right now. And on that note, I think you wanted to close out.
I did. Thank you for listening to the Red Devils Advocate, the official podcast of the Miami Red Devils Supporters Club. Original music in the intro and outro you're hearing right now. If you're listening, if you're watching, we'll see if I actually did the editing to make it work. But yeah, it sounds great. Special thank you to production assistants from Elizabeth, Lamella, and Carla. For Gerard G. Williams and Carter, I'm Adam. Come on, United.
Come on, United.
Come on, United. And go Jamaica. Let's go.